This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Monday, May 20th, 2024. I don't really have news for today. There's a lot of things going on. We had a great new article go up on the blog today about why the Fall Guy, which we reviewed last time on the show, is not doing so well, despite being well reviewed by audiences and supposedly critics alike. So go check that out. That's all for me. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but none of them I really want to talk about because they're boring. It's just the same old, same old. How about you, Dornall?
Yeah, not much going on here. Dungeons and Dragons news were, we were off last week. I am now officially a year older, so that happened to be on a Monday, so that's why we're late. Um, Dungeons and Dragons news. A weird thing came out from Wizards of the Coast. I guess they revealed some artwork for an upcoming Player's Handbook reprint or remake or next edition or whatever they're doing. It's not much news because, long story short, it looks like AI art prompt. At least was the beginning of that one, with an awkward-looking dragon in the background and all the characters facing the camera instead of the dragon. So
And specifically, it looks like AI art because one of the swords is bent. Um, the dragon's arm, a leg of one of the characters just completely missing. It disappears. There's no sign of it anywhere. Um, the dragon's arm uh, doesn't seem to be related to the rest of its body. Um, and just there's all sorts of awful issues with it. You've got the nicely cropped version up on the screen right now, so you can't see, but the full version shows that the dragon's right arm, that would be on the left side of the screen for you guys looking at it off the screen right now, is just completely wrong. It doesn't really attach to the body. The whole thing it's just awful, awful artwork. And I I am appalled and repulsed. And then there was somebody going around saying like this is an all-female cover.
you may be right.
And I'm like, no, this is not an all-female cover. And somebody was like, no, dwarves in D&D have always had beards. And I'm like, look, I don't know what they did. Female dwarves in D&D have always had beards. I'm like, I don't know what they did in 4th edition or 5th edition. I don't know. But I do know for a fact that in 3rd edition, female dwarves did not have beards. And I'm pretty sure in 2nd and 1st edition, they didn't have beards either. It's just, this is the best they can do. And so if you want a really, really bad pun that I just thought of right now, it's D&D Sucks edition. So
The Wizards of the Art, Bradford Walker in the chat. Hey man, glad you showed up. Hey, shout outs to Rawl. Been a while. Good to see you. Bradford Walker says WotC does use bot art now and has for a while. Wizards of the Coast's relationship with artists has been really bad for a long, long time. Famously, when Magic the Gathering came out and blew up and became popular, Wizards of the Coast hired these amazing artists. There's this great art scene in the West Coast. Uh, famous names like Anson Maddox, um, Tim Bradstreet, uh, Meek Stone, Quentin Hoover, right? All these amazing artists. And after after a few sets, when these artists who set the style and tone for pop gaming art for nearly 20 years, they got a little too famous and a little too expensive, and Wizards of the Coast decided that they needed to not pay famous artists and to to enforce a house style upon much of their works. So if you've ever been to your friendly local game store and looked at the artwork for the past 10, 15 years of Magic the Gathering art, you'll see it all looks kind of the same. They've all got the same sort of highlights and shadows and color palettes. And yeah, there's a reason for that. Um, a friend tells me, and this is purely secondhand knowledge, it got even worse. Really bad art direction, really bad um, game design, or really bad expansion design. But the art in particular has taken a really bad hit because of that. Because you can pay a guy in the Philippines 50 cents for a piece to do some card art instead of hiring the great Phil Foglio to do some custom artwork, right? Anyway, that's where we're at uh, with art these days, and it's a shame. And Dungeons and Dragons has not been spared that. Well,
Yes. So, hi, I'm J. Manfred Weichsel, and I'm on Geek Gab now. And if you look at my covers, I use human artists for all my covers, and that's not going to change. Art is very important to the work that I do, and I'm very happy and proud to work with human artists on all of my books.
absolutely. Welcome back to the show. I can't remember last time we talked.
I've never been on the show.
Are you serious?
I am. I'm totally serious. I've been on many shows, but I've never been on Geek Gab.
Well, it's about darn time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. I do you have more by way of introduction?
Yeah.
Um,
So, to all of you who don't know me, my name's J. Manfred Weichsel, and I've self-published 12 books. I've also written stories for many magazines. I've appeared in Cursova magazine 6 times, going on 7 times this summer, and I was in their Mighty Sons of Hercules anthology as well. You can check out my website and see all of the books that I've, written. Or right now, I'm working on my second anthology, and it's called Sword and Scandal, and it's an anthology of NSFW sword and sorcery stories, heroic fantasy stories, and I'm really excited for that. The Kickstarter is going on right now.
and I'm gonna share this for those of you hanging out on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share this Kickstarter. It also has this amazing human drawn artwork that you were just talking about
Yes.
for the cover. Absolutely hilarious. I need to find
You
find
scroll
this picture.
down, you can that's the paperback cover right there. You can maybe if you expand that, you can check it.
Yes. Magnify the oh, I can't share the magnified image. Let's get this image up. But yeah, it's and it's hilarious for those of you who are not um, watching online. You've got sort of your barbarian, fantasy warrior and fantasy woman, and they're striking their cool pose, and the barbarian man's holding the trophy aloft in his hands, and the trophy is well, it's the warrior woman's chainmail bikini top. Um, I I trust that that cover is setting the tone for what we'll find inside.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to publish sexy, funny, heroic fantasy stories. And so the cover. It took me a while to come up with this cover concept. And if you look at her, like he's so distracted that he's got his chainmail bikini top that he doesn't notice that she's about to whack him with her sword. So she's going in there for the kill blow too. But it took me a while to come up with that cover. And, this is my second anthology as editor. It's the first one where I'm going to put out a call for submissions and get all submissions from different authors. And I think that that's a very important thing to do because it'll make the process of selecting stories more democratic and it'll ensure that the anthology gets the best stories that are right for the anthology. So I needed a cover that communicated what I would be looking for once I put out the call for submissions. And the artwork is serious. Like the color is like something out of like a Boris Vallejo painting, right? Like it's not campy or like cheesy or like bright colors or comic booky. It's like it looks like sword and sorcery, but the situation that it's describing is a little sexy. He grabbed her top off, and it's also funny because that's not what you think about when you're doing when you're doing sword and sorcery. And if you look at the artist, his name is Appalonster. And if you scroll up on the Kickstarter page, he also did the cover for my last book, Into the Bush. And that's a very different style. It's a lot more comic booky and a lot more comedic and a lot more bright and colorful. But for this one, yeah, that's it. You see, they're inside a giant woman's vagina, and those are bacteria all around. And that guy standing there is the villain. His name's Cletus Albright. He's like kind of a redneck. So he's ordered the bacteria to rip her clothes off, and they're in the process of ripping her clothes off. And that was the cover of my last book, Into the Bush, where these characters that I have, the action girls, explore the pubic hair region of a giant woman who is lying prostrate on the ground in across several U.S. states, 4 U.S. states. Because she's partially in California, partially in Nevada, partially in Utah, and then her left hand is in Arizona. So she was 300 miles long.
That's very strange.
Yeah, I come up with really weird ideas for my books. I don't know why, but I do, and some people dig it. Some people think I'm a little too weird. Some people get offended. People get really offended by my books sometimes. I get like so many just like, but I don't really pay attention to that or let it bother me. People say that I should. People say that like when somebody gets offended by my book, I should like bring it out onto social media, make a big thing out of it, like blow up the internet. But I just don't have the energy to do that. I'd rather put my energy into writing books and making them the best books that I can. I'd rather put my energy into thinking up cool ideas for book covers rather than spend all that time, waste all that energy on like people. So like somebody send, put something on social media, I just ignore it. They send me a DM, I just ignore it. They go to Goodreads and give me a 1-star review, I just ignore it. None of that. I don't pay attention to any of that.
That's fascinating. So you definitely have a sort of a style and an angle that you're bringing to all your projects, or at least these two.
Absolutely, all of my projects, like all of my I mean, I write in a lot of different genres, like a lot of action adventure, a lot of horror, some fantasy, some science fiction. But even like no matter what genre I'm writing in, it's the same genre, which is like a J. Manfred Weichsel book. So in that respect, like I think I have a very distinct style, and I think I have a very unique voice that people recognize. Like I think like fans of my books, if maybe I decided to switch names and write under a pen name but wrote like the same kind of book, I think people who've read J. Manfred Weichsel books would be able to figure that out and would recognize it because I've developed a very distinct voice and a very distinct style of writing that I think is very different from anything anybody else in the world is doing today.
Well, it's certainly. I'll tell you what it looks like to me. It's certainly different from the usual sort of indie pulp inspired writers that I'm familiar with, but also there's a lot of people who write uh, weird, funny, or even uh, not safe for work type fiction, and they take themselves altogether too seriously,
Yeah,
and so you're in that middle ground there uh,
yeah.
with this comedic approach.
I mean, I try not to take myself too seriously, but at the same time, like I mean, I do take myself seriously. Like, I spend a lot of time writing my books. I spend like 4 or 5 months writing a book, where a lot of pulp authors will just put that thing out in like a month. I don't do that. I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort on my books to make sure that they're weird and out there, but also like good and quality. And so I mean I do take myself seriously in that way, but in terms of taking myself seriously, like being pretentious, well, maybe a little bit, but I try not to be pretentious.
Okay, I'll bite. What about you would be pretentious? As someone who, never mind your books, I don't read too much at all.
Well, let's see. My last book, Into the Bush, um, I was the main character of the book. And in the book, it was 10 years ago in Los Angeles. And these characters called the Action Girls, who are these three Hollywood starlets, they're three ingenues. They were the stars of my other book, Jungle Jitters. So I placed myself into the world of Hollywood where they lived and had myself be their screenwriter. So the movie was a novelization of a film that I ostensibly or wrote 9 years ago. That was made but is not available to watch anywhere on the internet. It's not on any pirate sites, not on YouTube, not on anything. So the only way you could get the movie is by reading my novelization of it. And so the plot had this very loopy. I don't know if you know like Tristram Shandy and Lawrence Stern. Um, this is like this old book from the 1700s. It's this lengthy mock autobiography of this guy named Tristram Shandy, but it's written in like a very almost metafictional style, or it's written in a very metafictional way. So he has this complaint, for example, where it takes him longer than one day to write about a single day of his life. So he can never write about his own life. He can never catch up to the present. He always falls further and further behind because every day he writes, he only covers part of a day of his life, and he has to cover each and every day. So it had a lot of metafictional humor that was inspired by this satire, this 18th century satire by Lawrence Stern. So I guess maybe I am pretentious. Like I don't like go around like social media talking about like, oh, I'm well read. I've read a lot of books. I'm smart. But I have read a lot of books and I am smart. So I don't like brag about it too much. I'm kind of reserved on social media, I guess. But
So
sure.
so you have your influences, and so you let those influences drive your writing in a way. Um, so Quentin Tarantino, if you're talking about films, Quentin Tarantino is famous for having all sorts of influence and just sort of copying them and putting them into his films. And he doesn't care if you get the reference or not. He's just sort of pleased with himself. So where do you fall on that axis?
I have books that I've read and that I love, and I'm influenced by them, but I'm influenced by them because of my love of those books. I don't like put things in my books as like references to other books. Generally speaking, like in Into the Bush, the ray that turned the woman giant was called the Gargantua ray, and that was a reference to the satire Gargantua and Pantagruel by Rabelais. So like maybe I'll like, but that's very rare. It's very rare that I'll put a reference like that into one of my books. Generally, like I read a lot of classics, and I'm influenced by the classics, and I've internalized them, and they're a part of me. But I don't like go around saying like, oh, this is influenced by this, and this is influenced by this, and you have to get this and this and this and this. Because my books are my own like unique thing. Like I might like think of myself in kind of a pretentious way as like a modern day Lawrence Stern or a modern day Rabelais, but and well, I used to use that in like my marketing and my advertising, but I don't really anymore because like it's enough that I know that I'm like a modern day author, like version of these classical authors. Other people don't really need to know that. They just need to know that I'm like here and that I'm writing and that my books are available and that they can read them and that they're funny and that they can laugh and just have a really good time reading.
That's great. That's great. So taking all of that sort of reputation and influence and you're so well established in your own style and tastes and everything like that. And forgive me for repeating here, but this isn't a book that you're writing. You're actually you've set up uh, this anthology, and you still have yet to solicit entries. So you're setting up to actually get people to write in this style.
Correct. I've been doing my own thing for a very long time, and it's time for me to like invite other authors to try to play in my playground and to try to participate in the kind of literature that I'm creating. Uh, I did an anthology last year called Gruesome Futures, and what I did was I just kind of invited authors that I knew to write stories, but like a lot of authors didn't write their stories and all this. So I wound up writing like most of the book myself. And I realized that that's not that I wasn't accomplishing my goal of getting other authors on board. And the way I'm going to do that is by raising money on Kickstarter so that I can pay authors by the word to submit stories. And I've gotten a lot of authors writing me, DMing me that they're interested in writing stories to submit, and they say, "Where's the solicitation? Where's the call for submissions?" I say, "Well, I can't post the call for submissions until the Kickstarter is funded." Because number one, if I post it before the Kickstarter is funded and all these people write stories and then it doesn't get funded, then like it won't get made and I won't be able to buy their stories, and that would be unfair because I would have put out a call for solicitations for stories that for a book that's not going to happen. But the other thing is like I can't send the submission call to authors ahead of time because that would be unfair to them. Because there's other authors who would get it at a different time, and it's only fair if it's posted publicly and everybody gets it at the same time. So the moment this thing hits $2,500, I'm gonna put the call for submissions up. It's already written, but the idea is like there are a lot of authors who they want to go wild, they want to go crazy, they want to experiment, and they want to play and have fun with their writing, but they can't because there's no markets that publish that. And I want to provide a safe space to write unsafe fiction. I want to provide a market where authors can write these short stories and submit them and have a hope of getting them published. And I think that's going to push the genre forward because right now, like, I think things are very stagnant right now. Like, they're not moving. And culture needs to move. Like, Andrew Breitbart, he said, like, politics is downstream of culture, but like, the real thing that he saw there was that culture is a stream and that it has to be moving. And if it sits still, it just becomes stagnant water, and I don't want that. I want things to be constantly moving and constantly, evolving and growing and changing. And, because it's a process of things becoming, one thing and then becoming another thing and then becoming another thing. And, you can see that like reading like, literary history, like you have like the Renaissance and then it becomes the Romantic period, and then like the Romantic period somehow becomes like the pulp authors, and like that there's these cultural streams, and they're not stagnant, they're always moving and always changing, and they're very dynamic, so I want to get things moving again.
And is this just just for movement's sake? I'm sorry, I didn't pick up the
No, it's
what's
not
the
for
end
me.
goal here.
Well, okay. So like if like water sits still, like right now, like nothing is changed, nothing is moving. Everything is stagnant, and the water is just sitting there still and stagnant and getting all just like moldy, and nothing's happening. Everything is just at a standstill right now. Like culture hasn't changed in like 25 years. Everything just looks the same. And you can see it. People are complaining about that all the time. Why does everything look the same? Why do all the movies look the same? Why do all the songs sound the same? Why do all the books look the same? Why do all the book covers look the same? Why does every website look the same? It's just becoming blah. So like movement and change for the sake of movement and change is about it's about escaping from that blah, and it's about creating something new, and like a culture that people can participate in and can be a part of it and can enjoy and can say, well, this is mine, this is new, this is now, this is my thing.
And you've already established readership that are interested in that new sort of thing, at least
Absolutely.
whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, my readership is interested in my writing, and it overlaps with a lot of other readerships. Like, I publish like 3 or 4 books a year, usually like 3 books a year. And so, like, it's not like you have to like only read J. Manfred Weichsel. Like, people who read more than like 3 books a year. So, like, but people who read my books are interested in other books too. Like, there's a lot of overlap between what I do and pulp, because I'm established as somebody who writes for Cursova magazine, because I'm a regular there, and also because my writing has a lot of action, a lot of adventure. It's a lot of fun. A lot of like people swinging on vines, and a lot of the kind of adventure that you want from a pulp novel. You'll also find that in my books. So, for those reasons, because my work is pulp inspired, I've read a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I've read a lot of, old science fiction and a lot of classic pulp. And, I'm on other podcasts where like I talk about, classic sci-fi and pulp. So, I have read a lot of that, and there's a big influence of that in my writing. So I think for those reasons, I have a lot of pulp fans, but I also have fans on like the horror side, because I do write a lot of horror too. Like I've got a whole horror series that I don't really talk about on the pulp shows that I'm on. But I have a lot of horror fans who've gotten into my work through my horror series. So like, they're people who primarily read horror books, and that they also read mine. So I've got a lot of pulp readers, I've got a lot of horror readers, and then I've just got kind of like random, readers who read like a lot of different things and just read very broadly, or people who discovered my work through like, I don't know, like BookBub or some like, or Goodreads or one of those sites, and who just kind of read them and enjoy them. So I've got readers in like a lot of different spheres.
Okay, so that makes sense. This the first I've heard of your horror series. We don't have to get into it if it's
So
not too unrelated.
I mean, it's called Tales to Make You Vomit. It's kind of inspired. It's kind of like a Tales from the Crypt type thing. It's got a crypt keeper type character who is kind of like the host, and who introduces the stories and does an outro. And It's kind of along that vibe. It's 3 books plus the anthology that I edited, and that series is pretty much done. I'm moving on to other things. Right now, I want to get this Sword and Scandal book published. Because if I do, if I can, if it gets funded, and if I can do it, like I want to make it a series. I want to do like a Sword and Scandal Volume 2 and Volume 3. I want to do like Space and Scandal. I want to do like Monster Scandal and Jungle Scandal. I want to do Bell Book and Scandal. I would I would get, like, if this gets funded, I have really big plans to keep it moving and to keep it going. Um, but and to make it like a thing, like a market for writers to write and publish and get paid. But this first one has to get funded before that happens.
That's awesome that you're looking forward to the future of that. So, I mean, you mentioned Kursova. This must be why I thought you've been on the show before. We do talk to a lot of Kursova authors and a lot of Kursova fans. But so what made you? And I know that you have experience doing the anthology before, so maybe that's just the answer. But do you have uh, a reason why you are using the anthology format as opposed to attempting a scandal magazine sort of format?
Well, that is interesting. I guess I wanted to start with an anthology, because I like anthologies. I also I didn't want to be like like Daw put out a lot of really cool old anthologies. Like, do you remember Daw books? Like in the '70s, they had like heroic fantasy anthologies, and like one of like Amazon Women, and they had this great horror series that was edited by Karl Edgar Wagner, and they just put out these great anthologies that I like, and I like the format. Like, there's like the author name, and then there's like a little description of the author and who he is, and then there's the story, and it's a great way to discover new authors and to kind of just discover the genres that they're writing in the '70s. So I really like that format. The magazine, I if I did a magazine, I'd be like stuck to a schedule and doing like for a year. And like I know that I'm going to want to do like a lot of different things. Like, I'm going to do Sword and Scandal, and I'm going to say, okay, now I want to do Space and Scandal, an anthology of like NSFW science fantasy. And then I'm going to want to do like Bell Book and Scandal about witches. And then I'll want to do Jungle Scandal about like jungle stories. And I'm going to want to do like all of these different things, and doing that like as one magazine where it just kind of jumps from genre to genre, I think would become very confusing to people. But if you do them as like different anthologies, and each anthology has a different theme, then that's something that people understand, and that's more in line with my personality and like what I want to do. Because like when I write, like my biggest challenge is like deciding what to write. Like, I go through a period where I have like a bunch of ideas bouncing around in my head. And I say, no, I want to write this idea. No, I want to write this idea. No, I want to write this idea. And I'll like start one thing and start another thing and start another thing. But then sometime, and that's part of the writing process, because sometime along doing that, I start one thing and I go, aha, this is the thing that I want to write. And then I wind up writing that thing. And so like that's my personality. It's going from one thing to another thing. It's not like I get like really into one thing and I just want to do like that one thing. So I want to, I want to give myself the flexibility to kind of do like a lot of different types of anthologies.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what you want out of this experience then, because we already have one perspective writer in the chat. Raul has something for Space and Bell Books and Scandal. He may have to wait for the next.
Yeah. Well,
He may have to wait for the next anthology.
let's see. It says the funny thing is that I have something for both Space and Scandal and Bell Book and Scandal, which is, oh wow. Well, we got to get this funded, Raleigh. How is it, Rawl or Raleigh? I've known you for like 5 years, and I don't know how to like say your name. It's Rawl? I always pronounced it Raleigh in my head.
I Well, we pronounced it Rawl. He didn't correct us when he was on the show years and years ago. So I hope that's right.
Yeah, so the question is, what do I want to get out of it? And I also have, and Raul also says, I also have a world in my back pocket that can work with Sword and Scamble. Terrific. Well, I'll be happy. I look forward to seeing your submissions. Let's get this funded so that we can submit. So that we can open up the call for submissions. What I am looking for in this anthology is number one, to put out a quality book, something that people enjoy, and that roll. And now Rolly says roll rhymes with ball. Okay, I've been pronouncing it wrong in my head all these years. Sorry about that, man. What I want to do is put out a quality book. I want to put out a book that people enjoy reading. Um, that is the number one thing. The number two thing is I want to bring authors together who have an interest in doing similar things that I do. Like I know that Raul has read a lot of my books. He's mentioned Jungle Jitters is one that he enjoyed, and he's mentioned a few others that he's enjoyed, and like a lot of other authors, tell me that they enjoy my books. So I want to put out a market that can bring those authors together who enjoy my books, who maybe want to do something along the lines of what I do, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that in the place where they can do that. So, big number two would be, I guess you would call it scene building, maybe, or community building, they would call it today. When I was a kid, they would call it scene building, but today they call it community building. But whatever you want to call it, that's what I want to do. I want to bring authors together in order to, put something together and to really do something. So that's number two. So number one, put out a great book. Number two, bring a lot of authors together to form a scene or a community. And number three, rinse and repeat. Do it again. I want to do it again and again and again. So those are my three goals with this book.
Is there something that you can say or want to say to prospective authors aside from the obvious sort of theme that we've been talking about?
Well, I'm going to put out a call for submissions with what I like, and what I really want is, I want stories that are subversive without becoming grimdark. Like I consider myself a radical centrist. I don't want like either extreme. I want right down the middle, and right down the middle right now is the most radical position that you can have. Um, so so subversive without becoming grimdark is how I would say it. I want stories that are funny. I want stories that have a really good sense of humor. Like my sense of humor is dry, it's sardonic. I write a lot of put a lot of social satire in my stories. That's all okay. You can put all that in. There's a lot of farce in my stories. I guess a lot of people call it slapstick now. So you put that in your stories, that's great. But my stories, if you read them, they also like have like characters who go through like serious drama, and I like that too. Like I like it when my characters go through dramatic situations, and those kind of difficult situations that you find in my books. So definitely put that in there too. But also just make it fun, put a lot of action, a lot of adventure, and of course it's an NSFW anthology, so make it sexy too. Put like hot women and sexual situations, and all of that. There's a lot of sex farce in my books. You can put a lot of that in there too, and like it's all great. So most of all, I want you to be creative. I want you to have fun writing the story, because if you have fun writing the story, then other people are going to have fun reading it. I want you to be playful, and I want you to, just experiment and try new things. Like experimentation has like a bad rap now, because when people see experiment, they think like, oh, well, that means like taking a magazine and cutting out the letters and gluing them together to like form words, like William S. Burroughs did. But like that's not really what it means. It means just simply trying new things and seeing if they work. Like if you're a good experimental writer, then your writing should be interesting no matter what. Like if you succeed, it's amazing, and if you fail, well, at least you failed interestingly. And that's kind of the spirit that I want people to go into writing the stories, like a very rebellious spirit, and just a very I guess I hate to say it, but the word would be avant-garde, like an avant-garde spirit. Like avant-garde was like a military term. It meant the front line in the battlefield. And I really want to be on the forefront. It's what I try to do in my own writing. Like I don't try to be like avant-garde, like to confuse people or confound people, but I try to do something new and different with my writing, and I try to, be on the forefront and move things forward.
Cool. And to go back to what you were saying about having a sense of humor uh, in an SFW story that has some interesting drama. So if I'm thinking in terms of television shows, we're going away from the Law and Order and a little closer to the Benny Hill type of situation.
Sure.
If it's going to be sexy, we're not going to be drawn into the muck necessarily. Have some style, have a sense of humor. It's all in good fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe Sid Caesar, you could say, or he was a television comedian too. But yeah, absolutely. Like if you're going to navel gaze, at least like shine a light on it and make it funny. Like have the barbarian like look down at his navel and like describe it in detail so that you can highlight the humor of him navel gazing. Like because like you see all of these solicitations as I say no navel gazing, and it's like, well, what if I make it funny? What if I shine a light on it? Then can I do it? Obviously, the answer in those markets is no. But in my market, it's yes. If you can make it humorous, if you can, show like the irony of this big, strong, this mighty barbarian, like, looking down at his feet and like, thinking sorrowful thoughts. Sure, do it. I'm game.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Uh, Daddy Warpig, I want to make sure you get an opportunity if you have any questions so far. Got him without
Oh
mic
no.
working.
Oh no. I think I left Daddy Warpig speechless. Um,
That's funny. It's usually the other way around. Usually he goes on a rant and then I'm speechless.
Oh wow. Well, I just went on like a good 40-minute rant, didn't I?
It was really good. It was really good.
Oh, was it? Oh, I never know when I'm going on these rants, like if they're good or if I'm just like just like talking. Like I don't know until people tell me. So I'm glad that my rant met your approval.
So for let's see. The television comparison I made because I'm not a huge reader. So that sort of helps me get a mental model of where you're at and where you're coming from, and looking at all of your hilarious covers, like the "Tales to Make You Vomit" covers.
Yeah,
That
that's really good. That artist, his name is Skin Cube. He does like a lot of like these really psychedelic heavy metal covers, and I asked him to do it if he could do it, and he said sure. And I wasn't sure if he could do kind of the style that I go for, but he drew that thing, and it was perfect. So I used him for that series. He's really terrific. You should look him up. He's great. But I guess like for yes, that is Tales to Make You Vomit, Kitty Cat Massacre. The first one he did was She Was Asking. which is probably still one of my favorite covers.
I'll see if I can put that up for people watching on YouTube.
I don't know if we can put that up, but you might get knocked off YouTube.
Okay, yeah,
know,
let's not do that.
yeah, like putting like grinding up cats. That's okay for YouTube, but naked woman, no, that's not safe for YouTube.
Let's skip that one.
So let's look at Ibu Gogo. That's one of my best covers. That's a really good one.
Ibugogo, is that also the Tales?
No,
Make
that's
Vomit?
that's one of my more pulpy stories. That's actually my first one, and it's got like implied nudity, but I don't think YouTube is going to complain about that one. And that's my oldest published book. I published a few before then, but they were kind of like experiments. I didn't really know what I was doing yet, and I failed miserably at them, and they're all unpublished. But Ibu Gogo was the book where like I first found my voice as an author, and so it's like the earliest one where like I can point to it and say like that's a J. Manfred Weichsel book. Like the earlier books that I've written, they're I was still finding my voice, and so they're not really J. Manfred Weichsel books. I was still figuring out what I was doing and what I wanted to do even. But Ibu Gogo is the book where I found that.
Okay, yeah, and that's
Yeah,
Ibugogo. I found this on your site, so
yeah, that's my
I'll put the
website there.
I'll put the link to the site in the show notes afterwards.
Sure.
jmanfredweixel.mailchimpsites.com.
Yeah, I use a subdomain. I don't care. Like I know like it looks professional to pay to get your own domain, but like I was like just like I needed a website, and I had been using MailChimp for my newsletter at the time. I no longer do, but I set my website up through MailChimp just because it was there, and I knew how to use the tools, which were the same to build an email. So I just kind of did that. And I built my website, and I could get a domain for it and pay like the $20 a year, but I don't understand why. Like it shows up fine in searches. Like you search my name, you Google J Manfred Weichsel, it's one of the first results. So like
Yeah,
why should they do that? Like yeah.
cool.
And that's Into the Bush. That's my latest one. That's Warrior Soul and Other Stories. You're scrolling fast past that one. You don't want your mom to see that on your computer or laptop. It's, Savage Headhunters right there. That
That's
is
great.
Tales to Make You Vomit. This one is that Savage Headhunters is kind of pulpy actually. Like I know it's like in my horror series, but this one is a jungle adventure, and it's about World War II, and it's based on a real story of U.S. servicemen during World War II who collected the skulls of Japanese soldiers. This is the Pacific Theater, and it's set on the island of Guadalcanal, and it's about the U.S. invasion of Guadalcanal, and they're having like competitions to see who can get the most Japanese heads, and
Wow.
it's pretty fun. It's like it's not as disgusting as the other three vomit books. But if you're like interested in checking out the series, but you're more one of like my pulp readers, like that's the one to check out. That's really the one to start with.
Cool, cool. So yeah, all your books and everything on this website. You can scroll through the covers fast or slow as you like.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Planet of the Wage Slaves. This is kind of like a satire about like like I've worked a lot of really bad jobs, and I wrote this surreal story about this dude who gets transported to a planet of wage slaves where he has to work a horrible job. It's kind of like a Portal fantasy, but it's like absurdist type comedy. It's a lot of fun. People like it. It's very relatable. I've been told it's very relatable if you've worked a lot of like cubicle desk type jobs, which I have.
Yep, I know that feeling.
Yep. And this is the Caledonian Boar Hunt. This is based on the classic Greek myth, the Caledonian Boar Hunt. This has got Artemis in it. It's got Atalanta in it, the Huntress. It's got Jason from the Argonauts, and it's got all the Argonauts in it. It takes place like after the voyage of the Argonauts. but the way I wrote it is like really bawdy. That means like a lot of dirty jokes. So like it's just like full of like these like really dirty retellings of classic myths. And like I spent so much time researching this. This was like published like during the height of the pandemic, and I was like, I'm locked in my house. What do I want to do? I just want to read like Greek mythology and write about Greek mythology. So that's what this is all about here. And the story is the king of Caledonia fails to honor the goddess Artemis because he's really drunk, because Dionysus just gave him the secret of wine and he gets way drunk. So she punishes the kingdom by sending a wild boar to just like kill everybody, to like, like just like slaughter everybody. And so the king puts out a call for all of the heroes to come kill the boar, and the Argonauts come. But there's like a rivalry because his son Meleager wants to kill the boar, and the Argonauts want to kill the boar, and because whoever kills it gets the prize. And of course, Atalanta wants to kill the boar, but none of them want to hunt it with a woman except Meleager, who's like in love with Atalanta. So this is like the boar, by the way, is like a giant metaphor for the pandemic. So it's like this really crazy, like really weird Greek myth. I was reading some Lucian while I wrote that, and I was like really impressed by his parodies of Greek myths, like about gods and everything. So I kind of took that style and I took that idea and I put it into my own style to like retell this Greek myth. It's like my epic. It's like Greek mythology according to J.
Oh,
Manfred
cool.
Weichsel. Yeah.
So I mean, you weren't kidding. Not that I had any reason to doubt you, but it's uh, interesting to see what you meant when you talked about how you fixate on something and you write it out before moving on to the next
Yeah, I
thing
just
to write
I
on.
get like really into one thing, and I like each book is like its own contained world. Like it's like like I just get really into something, I create it, and then I move on to the next. Because if you scroll down, you're going to see that I took a completely different idea, and this is not far from Eden. This is based on the Hebrew myth found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's mentioned in the Bible, and it's also in the Book of Jubilees, which is read by the Ethiopian Jews in Africa. So there's different versions of the myth, but mostly I took from the Ethiopian version and the one from the Dead Sea Scrolls that was like uncovered when they, you know, discovered those Dead Sea Scrolls. So this is about, and it's in the Book of Genesis too. It's mentioned, but it's not really developed in Genesis. But it's angels rebel again. God sends the angels down to earth in order to educate the humans. And the angels rebel against God by having sex with the human women and create Nephilim, and this causes a lot of trouble, and it almost leads to the destruction of the earth, and eventually it does, because of course we know that the story ends with God flooding the earth, which is developed in the Book of Genesis. But this is the story that precedes the flood, that's just mentioned in like a few lines. So this is probably like my best and most heartfelt book. It's still very bawdy. It's still very dirty. It's got a lot of fantasy and a lot of adventure, but it's probably like my most like heartfelt book. So like I also spent like so much time researching this story. Like I was reading all the different sources, and I was reading like all the commentary on the different sources, and like I like it, I did I was like reading, because like part of it came from Jubilees and part of it came from the Book of Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were like almost telling opposite stories, but I took those opposite stories and I reconciled them and I made them one story. And and there's a lot of different fragments that I took from too, and a lot of exegesis that I read, and from all the different religions that went into this book. So um, this was another book that I just spent like a lot of time researching this book. So yeah.
Well, that's cool. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanna bring it back around. We're
Oh,
almost coming up to an hour, so I want to
okay.
bring it back around to the reason you're excited to be
Yes.
here today.
Oh, wow. We just got, well, thank you. We just got two pledges, I think, while we've been on talking here. So,
Heyo.
wow.
That's the golden touch.
Yes. Oh, wow. So, well, thank you so much. And, thank you to everybody who's contributed to this because it won't happen, without everybody helping. So I really do appreciate it. Um,
Oh, that's great. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing this turn out. I know that you've been writing a lot for the past few years, and exciting. It's exciting to see the new. Like I said earlier, I thought we had you on because I was like, oh yeah, let's catch up with what Manfred Weichsel's been doing.
I
Um,
think because if you had me on, you'd remember my books.
War Pig would remember your
Yeah,
books.
but
I would not.
yeah, but no, I mean, I've been on a lot of podcasts. I've just never been on Geek Gab before. This is my first time, so I'm
Well,
really
we
happy.
gave you the push. Oh,
I'm really happy to be here. This is, but I'm really excited about Sword and Scandal, and I really want to see it fund so that it happens. So and I really do appreciate everybody who's backing this project. It really does make a huge difference. So thank you so much.
hey, that's I love hearing that. You're welcome. We're happy to have you on. We have a couple minutes left. I want to give Daddy Warpig another opportunity to ask questions.
Sure.
And the chat, if chat has any questions, John A. Douglas, glad to see you're here. We're almost at the end, but if you have anything you want to know about Sword and Scandal or Manfred Weichsel, ask now.
I've been looking at the chat. It doesn't look like there's any questions. Um, no, I don't have anything to ask. I'm glad we finally had a chance to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time being here. It's always great to come on a podcast and to, get to talk to people and to talk about my work. Because like you're online and you're like on social media, and it's not like a direct connection. It feels like a direct connection, but it's not. There's like a wall between you and the person you're communicating with, and when you get to come on a podcast like this, you get to really communicate directly with people because you're talking and they can hear what you say unfiltered. So I always appreciate the chance to come on these podcasts and to get to talk about my work.
I think Mr. Douglas has your number. He asks, this is a funny romantic cozy read, right?
This is a fun romantic cozy read, right? Well, it depends, Mr. Douglas, on your definition of romantic. um, So there you go. Different people have different ideas. It's probably not cozy though. Like, there is some cozy sword and sorcery, like some Fritz Leiber, I think you would call cozy, like Farford and the Grey Mouser. That one where it's kind of like London and like their girlfriends get killed. The name is blanking on me right now, but there's some cozy sword and sorcery out there. It's not the norm for the genre, but it's there.
Sounds good. I think we're about ready to wrap it up then.
All
It was
right.
great talking to you, and best of luck on the rest of this. Once again, Sword and Scandal on Kickstarter. I'm looking forward to the stuff that you and your authors get up to.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. And once again, thank you so much to everybody who has contributed so far. And if you haven't backed Sword and Scandal yet, please go to Kickstarter right now. Look up Sword and Scandal, or just find the link somewhere. Click on it, and please back Sword and Scandal. I really appreciate all the help that I can get.
You bet. And I appreciate having you on. I appreciate you bringing this to us and everybody's listening. And I hope everybody who listens later enjoys it. And if the Kickstarter's done by now, go take a look get yourself a copy.
Yeah, so
I'm
thank you, Dormo, and thank you, Daddy Warpig.
All
you
right.
got it.
All right.
Is that it?
I'm out of steam. DW, take us away.
Okay, folks, this has been Geek Gab for Monday, May 20th, 2024. We want to thank our guest for coming on, talking about his show. Go check out his Kickstarter. The link is in the description of the show. Go ahead and check out also geek-gab.com, which is our blog. We've got some great and continuing stories up on there that expand on the material we talk about on the show here. So they work hand in glove. Also, check out our Subscribestar and Patreon. For those of you who wish to sponsor the best gosh darn podcast in gaming today and pop culture in general, we're here just about every week at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. YouTube.com/GeekGab. That's YouTube.com/GeekGab. Subscribe, click the like to get an announcement as to when we go live. We're also available on SoundCloud.com, the Apple iTunes Store, and the Google Play Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. You can subscribe to us on the device of your choice, download us to your computer, or listen to us on the web. I usually do this so much better, folks. I think it's time for us to sign out. But don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.